Let's go.
Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. I'm your host, David Horsager. Join me as I sit down with influential leaders from around the world to discuss why leaders and organizations fail, top tactics for high performance, and how you can become an even more trusted leader. Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. It's David Horsager, and I have a special guest today. She has been in law enforcement for 28 and a half years. She was police chief at the city of Las Vegas. I'll do that formally. She was the chief of the Department of Public Safety at the city of Las Vegas. She has just done an amazing job there, and she was Trust Edge certified. We've been able to do some fun exciting work in the city of Las Vegas. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful because, she really reflects this work around trust, as we say, on stage and off, at work, at home, and she's become a friend. So please welcome just retired Chief Michele Freeman. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate that welcome. And yes, I'm glad we've become friends. You've been very inspirational for me, and it's been just a wonderful time getting to know you and learning through you and learning and living by actually the 8 pillars of trust, quite honestly.
Well, I am grateful, and I'm grateful for everything that's happened in the city of Las Vegas and just the partnership there. And especially, getting to see you and there's just what a great family you have out there of people, right? You grew up in the force, 28 and a half years. So let's just give us a background. I know you went to the FBI Academy and all these things, but give our listeners, we've got leaders from CEOs to presidents of countries and companies and sports teams listening, and we have people around the world. But give us the just what's the background of Michele Freeman and your leadership, and from growing up a little bit to the FBI Academy and on to 28 and a half years. Wow.
Yeah. So thank you. So let's see. I'll start in New York because that's where I'm originally from. So I left New York to come to Las Vegas. I am internally, I love New York, and I was a big New Yorker. I came to Las Vegas, and it was a bit of a culture shock, I have to say. And now that I reflect back, it's really funny because I loved the food back there, right? So it was really hard for me. A good piece of pizza is very important, right? We want a good piece of pizza. And so a slice of pizza. And so that was really hard. And then coming here back when I did, which was in 89, I came out to Vegas, and it was a culture shock because it seems very slow to me back then. So here I am, very fast paced, New York. And then we go over to Vegas, and I go into the store, and I'm sitting there, and people are talking, and I'm like, just buy your product and let's go. Little did I know, right? Because this is before I come out here before my 21st birthday. And so I've been out here a long time. And so little did I know that building trust was just that, was being and enjoying where you're at, being where your feet are, and enjoying the moments and conversing with people. So that's where I kind of started. And I came to Vegas, and I remember a friend of mine said to me, oh, you're going to wait until you see it because, New York's cold, it snows, it has seasons. Wait until you see the first winter. You're going to be incredibly just like beside yourself, because normally we're all bundled up, but in New York, right? Snow, blizzard, that kind of thing. No. So in Vegas, she says, we're going to go on campus because I came out here to finish school, my undergrad at UNLV. We're going to be on campus, and you're going to see people that are going to be all bundled up, scarves and hats and mittens on, long jackets. So sure enough, the very first winter I'm here, I see all this. I'm in a sweatshirt and shorts, right? Middle of winter. It was December. I remember this. And everyone else bundled up in jackets and all, cozy. And then the very next winter, it wasn't very funny anymore. I was the bundled up one, right? So I quickly converted to the Las Vegas lifestyle. I learned how to say Nevada correctly. So I now love and appreciate my culture that I have here. So with that being said, let's see. I started in the Department of Public Safety in 1992 as a corrections officer. And then I moved through the ranks. And like you said, I landed in the position as chief, appreciated the responsibilities that were given with me there, appreciated everything that I was given, loved the city of Las Vegas and everything that I got from there, building the relationships, cultivating and maintaining them throughout the years. And it was really hard to depart, right? So that's where I'm at now. You mentioned the FBI National Academy. What an offer that I couldn't refuse. It was such an opportunity that I never was expecting. Not very many people get to go to the National Academy, made friends internationally. So there's over 200 people that got to go to Quantico for over 2.5 years. And you had it was kind of like I'll call it a 3-prong. You had academia, you had to take actual college credits, very strict schedule. And then you also had your physical part. So you had to do your physical challenges. And then you had your networking, which was by far, of course, the most important piece, because it's all about building trusting relationships, right? And that's where I really was able to cultivate so many more relationships around the world.
After that, now we're going to go back to being chief and some of the challenges. You had the shooting of 2017. You've had some big challenges you've had to be a part of, lead in racial unrest right before you retired, and how you've had to step up as a leader. And when I think of Michele Freeman, I think of this wonderfully fast-paced, loving, I think you go by this quote, I remember that, lead with love. I remember you said that to me, lead with love, right? But this loving kind, but also this kind of spitfire, ready to step up for the challenge that's needed to love all and deal with all these big challenges that we have. Before we get there, jump ahead, because you're learning today. You're jumping right. You said you're retiring and your husband's playing golf and having a whole lot of fun, and you jump right into a doctorate in Michele style that can't slow down. Tell us just a glimpse about that and what you're learning now, and what do you hope with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been on this path, this really great journey, and it's very interesting. So my doctoral degree will be in public policy. It's a very cool program. It's not a typical degree with which your PhD. This is an inaugural program that I got to enter in with the very first cohort. It started 3 years ago. I'm going to be graduating hopefully in May. We cross our fingers on that. I'm almost there, but the light is blurry, but it's there, at the end of the tunnel. And it's in public policy, which is very interesting because that's not where I necessarily ever thought I'd be. I actually had started going back for psychiatry, and life takes a different path sometimes. But why I'm doing this and why it's so important is my focus is helping officers, and it's educating and assessing and preventing suicide prevention for law enforcement officers. And I have been trying to help change the culture for over 2 decades with recognizing and making a culture that's okay to not be okay, for mental and emotional health to be just as good as physical health, or just as important, as physical health, because all of them bleed together, right? And they reflect one another. And it's so important to speak that. And, here we are as police officers, law enforcement officers, and we're supposed to be the ones taking care and helping others. So it's very hard for us to be the ones to recognize that we need assistance. And so culturally, it's just not something we entered into. That's not how you entered into it, especially when I began, so many years ago in 1992. So my goal is to help change the culture, help with with a policy change, and to continue working on resiliency, working on self-care, working on how can we be okay with not being okay, and knowing that we're all going to fall down at some point. How do we get back up? How do we practice so that we can get back up quicker? And how do we say, you know what? I need help.
How do you, this is interesting because a lot of our leaders that are listening, they're going 100 miles an hour. Some of them have focused so much on their role, their work, their mission. They've lost their home, their family, and their health. And that's certainly in policing. That's certainly in, a whole lot of other types of leadership that whether it's government or corporate, or even superintendents of schools. So Maybe let's get real personal here. What have you done? I mean, if people don't see on the screen and they're just listening to the podcast and not watching the video, in front of me on screen is a very vibrant, healthy lady that if you meet her, she is full of energy and just, beautifully healthy. How do you stay healthy? Because physically, emotionally, I'm sure you had ups and downs too, but what do you do personally to just keep healthy when you get the weight of the world and the weight of all those challenges kind of in Vegas and leadership and all these things on you? What did you do and what do you continue to do, maybe routine wise even?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. And it is really important because, and I think what's important, and I'll share me, is we all need to recognize that it's not a one size fits all, right? There's a lot of things we can do that are really simple, but may not always be easy, especially during times of like sadness, depression, or times where you're just feeling down or in a rut, right? Because we're all going to have something that's going to happen in life. There's going to be some kind of trauma or tragedy that will eventually happen, whether it's small or large, it doesn't matter. Sometimes it affects us, right? So one thing that I love to do on a daily basis is I love positive quotes. I'm always searching for positivity. I'm always looking for positive quotes. So that's something that's inspirational for me. I love to listen to positive podcasts. I definitely meditate. So this was a hard one for me to get into because I was like, I can't meditate. My brain is always moving. I'm always on the go. I can never just settle it. And then finally, I realized you're not supposed to settle it. You're supposed to understand and accept and work through it. So I got to learn what meditation was really about. And now I really enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. I don't always have a good meditation. Sometimes it doesn't work to my advantage, but it's just so helpful. And belly breathing. Just breathing, because a lot of times what happens is, especially in high, fast-paced jobs, regardless, whether it's policing or something else, right? We're on the go and we're breathing up here, which is your chest area. Well, that's kind of like your fight or flight area. You want to be breathing from your belly breaths. So if you actually breathe and you get a full deep breath into your belly, that's going to help regulate your breath. And even just like sitting up in a structure, that strong posture, and then relax. See if you're holding your shoulders, just relax them. You can feel such a difference in, like when you stand like with your shoulders up, you can feel such a difference in the tension of your body. So there's so many little things that, I practice, and you can do them like in a meeting. You can literally ground yourself and just help relax. Because sometimes, we're in a meeting, and I know I've even led meetings that people are like, ugh, when is she going to be done with this meeting? I'm ready to be done. And conversely, I've also sat in meetings where I'm like, uh-oh, I don't think I'm listening anymore, and realize I better get back in tune. So I let me just get back to where we're at now, be where our feet are, be where our space is in time, ground your feet, right? And just take a deep breath. And that really helps a lot. So those are a few of the things that I like to do.
Do you have a regular, as far as both physical and mental, it seems, you brought those up as far as the, even suicide rates and just other things. Do you have a certain physical routine like yourself to stay fit?
So here's where I'm going to give you a little bit of I'm going to go vulnerable here, right? So a few years back, I had a back injury, but I didn't actually do something to it at that moment in time, but it for sure went out. So that's also another way that I had to stop and slow down and take that pause, right? Pausing is so important, reflecting on what's going on. And people are like, oh, it's got to be from the duty belts, right? And I said, no, I'm not going to say it's from the duty belt. Do I think that the weight on the duty belts made a difference? For sure. But do I think that was the cause of my back injury? Absolutely not. I was very active growing up. I played a lot of sports. I did a lot of things. I was always doing things. And I think that's part of my back injury was just from the normal wear and tear of life. And me probably not doing some of the self-care routines that I talk about. And I needed to pay attention to my physical response to probably my mental and emotional not doing so good, right? So I went ahead and I had to go through some PT. So right now, unfortunately, I'm not as active as I used to be. Love to go to the gym, love to lift. I used to lift heavy. Cardio wasn't my big friend, but I obviously would do cardio because it was important for, that part, for your heart, for your health. And I love to be in the gym. I played sports growing up, love to do all those things. Now it's a little different. I'm a little older in life. Things changed, my back injury. So what I do is I do a lot of more like relaxation. I'll do physical things I've learned in physical PT, physical therapy, and some of the mild yoga poses. And I work with people today because I always know that I can learn more. I'm a life learner for sure. I always want to know, how can I absorb more information, right? So what I do now is I love to take walks, and instead of walking fast to get to nowhere quickly, I take gratitude walks. I go outside and I literally stop and smell the roses. I literally and this is a great thing to do, take a gratitude walk. You can go, and you don't have to leave your backyard, your front yard, your street. You can go right there and really notice things you've never noticed before. Oh, I knew I had a tree in the front yard, but wow, look at the leaves on it.
So what I'm hearing for you, a gratitude walk, is a big part of it is noticing and being thankful, being grateful.
Absolutely. Extraordinarily important for me.
On the meditation, tell me, what's a good meditation look like for you?
So I need help. I need a guided meditation. I am not good to do my own meditation. So I have to use either one of I use one of the ones, you can find so many online guided meditations. If you're into Peloton, you can even go onto Peloton and use the app there that have guided meditations on there. There's people locally that I follow. You can go online, like I said, and do them. Actually, Deepak Chopra and Oprah do a guided meditation. They do guided meditations, love theirs. So there's just different ones, and what resonates with you, I think, is different, right? So you should try different ones. And that's the thing for me. When I started doing it, I was like, oh my goodness, it's not working. But I created a routine, especially when I hurt my back. So I started doing it in my little yoga room. I would do my physical therapy, and then I'd go right into my guided meditation. And I would do them, and they didn't always, quote unquote, work for me. I first started doing them, and then I ended up kind of listening to them in the car, but not actually meditating. So I was just kind of getting used to it. And now finally, typically, first thing I do in the morning before I even get out of bed, and last thing I do in the evening, is a guided meditation. And same thing, I do my gratitude. I reflect upon the day in the evening, and quietly by myself in bed when I close my eyes. My husband doesn't even probably know this. I think, what in the last 24 hours is the one thing, even if I had a bad day, that I can find gratitude in? And it might simply be, you know what? The water just felt good on my skin in the shower this morning.
Hey, it's Ann with the Trust Edge team here. As you know, we are passionate about helping you and your team perform at your best. And that's why David wrote his new book, Trusted Leader. This true-to-life parable follows the story of a CEO who uncovers the root issue threatening his organization's success. And in the back half of the book, David provides a roadmap for even how to solve those root issues. Get Trusted Leader for your team, your organization, or even just for yourself at trustedleaderbook.com.
So let's jump from gratitude walks and meditation to the fierceness of leadership when 61 people die in a shooting in 2017, or racial unrest. What did you do? I mean, what you were known for leading in the midst of some big challenges. I heard and saw very positive things. I think of some things I heard, but tell us about, when you're when you have to lead then, and you have to bring calm to then, and you are fast paced and you are positive, but you're also an empathizer. I mean, it was a tough time. I remember listening to it was the communications director who said, people obviously were critical of us because this terrible thing happened, but we handled it so much better. Our team, things actually went in many, many ways very well because of how we were set up and prepped and whatnot. But some of that's your leadership. What did you do in those times? I'm thinking of right now, the social unrest of last year and that 2017, those stand out to me. And maybe there's many more, I'm sure, in your 28 and a half years. But how do you lead then?
Yeah, so that's great questions. So obviously last year it was very complicated because not only did we have the worldwide pandemic, which we've never seen in our lives, and then on the heels of that we get civil unrest, right? And then just everyone's personal own space that they're in, which is life and death. So there's an all in between, right? Things happening, and then children having to be homeschooled, and what's going to happen next, and people that are already ill and you're taking care of them, or trying to take care of your own illnesses. So those are all really challenging times. And you did mention 1 October, and that was a big community thing for us. And it hit, of course, nationwide. And Las Vegas is such a great place. What's great about it is people come from all over. So people literally didn't just feel it or read about it because they were reading about it elsewhere. They were feeling it because they were visiting here during that actual time. And so we had a lot of people that were victims that weren't necessarily from Las Vegas, right? So first off, I definitely want to give kudos to all the arresting agencies surrounding us, and to our big brother agency here. The city of Las Vegas it was Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And the sheriff who runs that department is who had to lead through his police department through that. And he was the one who was really running in and also, calling upon us to assist all of the other local agencies. And what Las Vegas is known for, which is really, really incredibly inspiring, is our camaraderie and our community. And we come together, and it's not words. It's not words. We come together during difficult times. And that doesn't mean that somebody won't say, I didn't like what was going on. There's certainly going to be people that didn't feel like they were community, right, in times of trouble or difficulty or in devastation or traumatic experiences. However, I've personally witnessed where we all, if I'm speaking in the law enforcement space, the law enforcement communities, public safety communities, so whether it's the fire departments we work very well with, police departments, first responders have expanded what that definition means here in Vegas now, here in, I should say, our entire southern community, southern Las Vegas area, southern Nevada area, excuse me. And what that means is we're not looking at, that was a double negative, so don't do that. Right? But we look at everybody. We look at, whether you're in the hospital, your medical staff, your fire department, everybody's first responders, behind the scene people, dispatch, your people that are working maintenance. They're doing all these things to make sure that everybody on the front line can continue to move. Nobody is more valuable than another person. And that's what's so incredible about our community. We cultivate that relationship. We've built that relationship, and we've able to move forward. So one of the things that I'll use as an example through that time was we weren't on the strip. So my department wasn't on the strip. And here's what the challenge was for that. Because the sheriff had enough people there. Metropolitan Police Department and the other agencies that reported and responded, there was enough people. There was actually more than enough people. The thing is you gotta be careful, because too many people sometimes is too many people. So here's what happened. We were taking tours and we were walking around and making sure our people were okay. And come to find out that you're trained to run in. So we have all these officers here waiting to run in, waiting to render aid, waiting to give help, suited up, ready to go, really, really on fire to help their brothers and sisters in our public safety arena. And they're told to stand down. So now another set of emotions coming because they want to help. So they have to understand, which it was very hard in that space. How do I not run in when that's what I was taught to do? That's what I'm on the ready for. I'm always on the ready to run in, right? And so what part of us did was organize and develop plans to be able to accept where they have to stay and how do they work within where they're at to help the community at large. One of the things that our police officers, we call them marshals in the city of Las Vegas Department of Public Safety, same thing as police officers, so that's the same term, same category one in category one certification here in the city, or excuse me, in the state of Nevada. What they were given is they were given this responsibility. Go to the coroner's office, and we want you to secure the perimeter. Well, what does that mean? That means that they're going to go and they're going to make sure that when these families are coming and looking for their loved ones, that there is, some kind of order when they come, because the coroner's office has to be protected. Obviously, that's the last place you go when something devastating happens and if there's death, right? So we were told, go there. So I did a tour with our crisis intervention administrator and a lieutenant at the time, because we were just, my thing is be where your people are, and balancing that, because that sometimes I don't get to always be where my people are. And that's the most important thing for me. And sometimes I have to be behind the scenes, right? But in this case, we go down to the coroner's office and we learn that, our people weren't just securing the perimeter. Our people were actually taking these victims, and taking them and helping the people that worked at the coroner's office move from one gurney to another, cleaning off the blood on the gurney that the body just was on, so that they can make it sanitized for the next person that comes in, because everyone wants to be treated and needs to be treated with respect. So my officers were doing this very different job that they thought was going to be what they were going to be doing, to include some of my officers that were just starting and that were just on probation and actually in field training. So what a change in where you think you're going to be to where you left. And then everyone else, there was a lot of officers and all the other employees that were helping and supporting. And the corrections officers in the jail, we didn't know if there was going to be like mass arrests or what was going to go on at the time. Was this, what was the situation at hand? So they're sitting and preparing and waiting. So everyone did a beautiful job. I was very proud. It was one of the most it was the most devastating big scene ever, right, across America. However, it was one of the most devastating scenes personally that we were involved in. And then the other piece was checking on your people. And here it was where, the deputy chief would walk through and everyone would say, oh yeah, everything's good. I'm good. I'm good. And then I walked through with my crisis intervention administrator, and just moments changed, because when we get there, they just found out, oh my gosh, my son was there. And now they're trying to process that while standing at work, doing their public service job. So constant, mental health and emotional well-being and trying to check on everybody. And then, moving into civil unrest, we're having to, everyone's entitled to their First Amendment right. Go out and have a civil protest. We're all for that. You should be able to speak your belief and go out. But we still had to suit up and be ready and make sure that we connect with the people out there, communicate, build a relationship, and hope that the leaders will go ahead and it'll stay peaceful. Well, the hardest thing that I had to do as a leader was now have it was a pre-brief, because it wasn't a debrief like after the incident. So it was a briefing, really. And I went again with the crisis intervention administrator, and we met the marshals, who now were all in their riot gear. And I'm standing out there in the parking lot, and they're all getting ready to leave. They're all suited up in their gear. They're trained up and ready to go. And then I had to stay behind. That was incredibly difficult, to send everyone out there and me not be there with them.
One thing I noticed about you, is your deep care for the people and the mission and the city. And I know the motto of serve and protect, and that going back to the the 1 October event of how they're just ready to serve, and that they did serve. Not everywhere would do that. Like you said, the tension of being ready to run in and had told to stand down or clean off the blood of someone. But I think there's a tension. You know, we work with many police departments and chiefs, officers. I think for me at least, and they all, I'll say the similarity with you, they feel this call to serve and protect. We have some great people in our country serving and protecting. What I haven't seen, like you, is someone that cares so much about her people that she leads, even on her sleeve, kind of really, genuinely, lovingly, optimistically cares. I think they maybe do, but the difference I saw was with you. I saw people, you know, a lot of times in policing just have more of a shell up. Like they can't be emotional or feel emotion because it's just so much. And I have even dear friends that, you know, the things you see on a daily basis, your people see, and that tragic situation with that kid in that apartment or that drug issue, I mean, just the worst of the worst, that girl, that whatever, you know, the images that you see, but your positiveness in life and your care for your people, like, I just think, I guess, how did you balance showing care, and because people can tell out there you care, they can tell, and yet not having this shell up like many, like I often talk to my police friends and say, when I speak at big policing events, I'm like, they all sit in the back with their arms crossed. They're hard and cold as can be because everybody's got to see which doors, you know, they all want to be the back person, right? And you understand why, because they've all been lied to 100 times a day. I didn't speed, I didn't steal, I didn't do that, I never did that. And then in that case, for building trust, they don't trust anybody, you know, in a way. They don't believe anybody because they've been lied to 100 times a day. So they trust you're lying, or many are, you know, in a way. It's a bit of a joke with close friends of mine. But I guess the tension and the beauty, I think, how did you do it to be caring? And I know it's not easy to take, you know, this isn't a pandering thing, but people need to know you really care emotionally for your people. And yet, how do you have enough of a distance so that you keep your sanity in, you know, these tragic situations that you're having to deal with?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, because I think a lot of people, for a long time, people never saw that within me. And I wasn't as vulnerable. And, you know, I think the moment in life that changed me was I was a lieutenant, and the deputy chief at the time, his name is Bill Frazier. He told me, you know, I was very about the structure, and I was very about the rules and the policies and procedures. And it was very important, right? Because that's what we do in policing. We make sure that people are following the rules, whether it's state regulations, it's ordinances, it's state statutes, whatever it may be, they're following the rules. That's the job. Follow the rule, follow the rule. And it's this black and white world. But it's really not. There's gray. And what he really taught me was, I came in there to talk to him about something that was very black and gray in my eyes. There was somebody that absolutely violated policy, and I felt like so violate policy equals discipline back in my younger years, right?
And you started out in like jail, right? Like helping
I did.
on the detention center front, so whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was incarcerated. You know, they say do one day at a time, an entire sentence of your work history, right? That's the jail business, right? If you're in the jail business. And it's a very unique business to be in, and a lot of people can't do it. So I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of times the corrections staff gets overlooked, and they do such a unique job, and it's very admirable, and it's very difficult. And I remember so many police officers saying there's no way I could be locked up for my entire career, one day at a time of work, right? So, well, what happened was I'm sitting here and I come to him and I say, this is what I think we need to do, right? We've got this violation and we need to go ahead and connect it to this discipline. And he's like, Michele, he's like, you have to think about the human side. The human side is just as important as anything else. And at that point in time, that's when I was able to, I didn't get it fully then, but I heard it and I let it compute. And because I was very no emotion, like I didn't show emotion. I never let anyone through my shell. I always kept that very strong, I'll go with the New York, look. I kept it very strong, structured. And he said it. And over time, I was able to develop more and more because I was all about, let's just get the job done. We don't need to talk about your family. We don't need to get to know each other. But I missed the mark so long and didn't realize the importance of networking and connecting and building those trusting relationships in life. And that was the foundation of when the light bulb turned on for me, that I was able to understand and feel what that meant without not being able to do my job. I still had to look out and do things and make difficult decisions for sure. And I still, was doing that throughout my career, but connect with the people because the people are what matter. Without people, you don't have anything.
I love it.
People.
It's true. Well, you said something to me. I had you get on the phone with all of our certified Trust Edge coaches, right there in maybe it was April or May of the pandemic, or actually it would have been right after more of the civil law unrest, and we had the George Floyd murder out here, and the challenges with all of that kind of thing, and what all of the issues that came kind of that instigated, and I remember. In the midst of that, you have the civil unrest things, like you have the protests happening out there, some of them. And although because of the relationships you guys had built, you had a lot less, I think, than many parts of the world, right? But you said something like, we don't do social distancing, we do physical distancing. And I love that. Tell us about how you did that.
Yeah, so thank you for saying that too. So social distancing is this word that everyone's using, right? But that's not what we really want to do. We want to physically distance ourselves from people because we don't want to be around. We want to make sure that we're safe and that we do the right things and that we continue to physical distance so that we can go ahead and help our community heal as best as we can, not carry this pandemic forward, reduce the rate of the virus itself, and maintain the physical distance connection. Or excuse me, the social distance, the social connection. So we want to stay socially connected and physically apart. So, and so physically apart is what we're doing right here, right now. But we're staying socially connected. You and I are having a conversation like you're sitting right here with me, but we're maintaining our physical distance so that we can help our community. And I think that what happens right now, so many people are having so many difficulties with a myriad of things, because of the change in the way that we're living and not having that connection and not being able to be physically with people, which is very difficult, right? Because isolation is a whole nother thing, especially people that live by themselves, right? So that you're not able to work and live the way that you're used to working and living, and staying by yourself is difficult. But there are so many ways that you can maintain this social relationship and continuance of connection and continuance of building your relationships. It hasn't changed. And what I like to do is try and look at, there was the generation prior to actually, Gen X probably, I would say, or the millennial generation, right? That started to speak to me and say, look, we want to work remotely. Can we work remotely? And the thought process at the time was pretty much around many places in our country was, no, you come to work because that's what you do, right? Well, look at us now. These millennials were correct. You can work in the space that we're working in now. And there are studies to even say, be more productive. So you can actually have, or like a combination of work, right? You can combine whether it's remote and physical. And so you can have this beautiful relationship. We do things that we wouldn't have done. Now there's like quarantini hour, right? People are having quarantini drinks and quarantini parties and all this fun stuff. You can do a puzzle with someone from another world, across the world. Yeah. You can do, you read a book with somebody in another state, in another country. You can do things with other people without physically being there, but maintaining your social connection.
And there's intentionality Yeah. Let's touch on, it hit us hard here in Minneapolis when the civil unrest, of course. I remember, I'll get real vulnerable here. I don't know, I hope this comes out exactly right, but, I have an African-American teammate on our team here, and we were just over lunch. I was just talking about, how are you feeling? And he was talking about how heavy it was for their family and his son, and just some of the things that have never happened to me that have happened to him, and his 18-year-old son, and some stuff that he was going through in that emotional time processing things. 5 minutes later, I got a call from a white police officer that's scared to death how police officers are going to be treated as a result of this whole, the civil unrest challenges in Minnesota, and his perspective, which was very different. But somehow, one, I'd just love you to speak to the differences and what how you deal with that. And two, I think just you did a beautiful job, and I've seen you do it, building relationships across cultural and other divides, economic and other divides. And I think just speaking to that as a leader a little bit, and what you have done in Vegas and personally.
Yeah, thanks. So this is, it's obviously a heavy topic, and it's very real and it's very important. And I think one of the things that really resonated with me was several years back, I was fortunate enough through the city of Las Vegas to take a diversity class. This class was more than just a class, right? Your routine class. It was really an eye-opening experience. It was a few days. There was a couple different kind of showcases of it, but I was able to go in the leadership forum, and I think it was 3 days. It may have been 2. It was many, many years back. And, my definition of diversity really was very similar to their definition of diversity. And that's inclusion of everybody. And that doesn't just speak to your color, your skin, religion, gender, any preference. It's about your thought process and your experiences and your exposures and how you were brought up. That all develops your thought process. And that's how you kind of think the way that you do, right? And so you go through life and you may have certain experiences and exposures that kind of made you. And all of those are just as important as anyone's else's. And so when it's funny for me, because we just talk about in policing, it's like, we're the people in blue. You put on the uniform and it's like, I see the blue. We're on the same team. It's kind of like when you suit up to go and play, or practice before you're going to play a game. You're suiting up and you're on the same team. It doesn't matter what you look like, what your color your skin is, what your religion is, what you ate for breakfast, what you didn't eat for breakfast. You just come and you're there to be on the same team and to move towards the common goal, right? And so that's how I was actually brought up. And I mean, New York is, I was fortunate to be in that community, bringing us up there and learning the way that I did, and experiencing lots of differences and accepting lots of differences and recognizing that everyone's entitled to their opinion, and their opinion is just as valuable as mine, even if it's a difference of opinion. It doesn't matter. I'm allowed to have mine, and everyone else is allowed to have theirs. And I always say, like, if you have the choice to be right or kind, choose kind. There's no need that you have to be right all the time. And sometimes you can be right and it's hurtful, and it doesn't mean that you have to express right. And so for me, I think, it's real. We need to take a pause and understand that no one can understand any of us, none of us, right? So I'll use this analogy, and I don't know if I'm getting deep enough for you, but I'll give this analogy that I use quite a bit. I look at life as this balcony, and we're all in the balcony of life. And so during our life, we have different seats in the balcony. So right now, I have my seat in the balcony because of all of my experience, all of my journey so far has taken me to this seat. And even if you were to sit on my lap, not being weird or anything, but even if you were to sit on my lap and look forward, you're not going to see the things the same way that I'm going to see them. I'm going to have to look around you. I'm going to have to look beside you. We're not going to see it exactly the same. And then as I develop and I grow, I'm going to move to a new seat in the balcony, and I'm going to get to experience and see things just differently now again in my new seat. So as we continue through our life journey, we continue and see things differently. And if we go and we reflect, which is something I really take a lot of time to do nowadays, reflect on the past, how can we learn from it? Not be disappointed in maybe something we wish we would have done differently, but, learn and grow. So if we can do that and change and have a little bit more grace for ourselves as well as others, and even if we're opinionated people, because first of all, I am opinionated. I absolutely, I told you, I keep saying, coming from New York, we all got that stereotype. You've got an opinion. And I do, and I'm quick to be able to do that. But at the same time, I have that opinion, and then I stop and I pause. And I was very lucky. I'll give you one more piece of my journey. When I was going for my associate's degree back in New York, and I was fortunate to have a defense attorney as a professor. And this is what he shared. We talked about all these different controversial issues. So we would talk about, when I talk controversial, I'm talking about hot topic controversial. I'm talking about, let's say, death penalty, abortion, things that are very controversial and people are very passionate about, right? So this is what he did for us. And this is me in my young years. He said, my late teenage years, but young years. He says, who believes in, X, Y, or Z? And we all raise our hands on what side we believed in, right? Whether death penalty, pro or not against death penalty. Same thing for abortion. And then he broke us up into teams. And now we had to defend the side that we were opposition of. That very lesson allowed me to continue to grow through life and remember. So even when I make my judgment call, I always try to look the surrounding area of what could be converse to what my beliefs are, what could be different. And there's so many things that you can do something the same way, you can do one thing, get the same result and do it different ways. And it doesn't mean anyone was wrong. It just means that it was different. And we should be able to respect those differences because we're one community. We all are the same. We all have skeletal structures and we all bleed red.
There you go. Well, from a little depth here to wrapping up to the lightning round, this has been so good, Michele, so good. I mean, everybody defend. I love this idea. Defend the opposite side. Learn to defend. My dad was, by the way, really good at this, bringing up something at the table, and you got to defend either side. And it was such a healthy thing. And I remember then other people aren't like that. It meant, where you can't, this isn't an argument, it's whatever you believe. It isn't an argument to learn, right? It was an argument to have instead, and what a gift. But all of this, inclusion of everybody, grace, I love this one. If you have to choose between right and kind, choose kind. Be where you are. Take a view from the balcony. It's different than anybody else's, no matter where or how you sit. Positive. Your little starts for the day. Positive quotes, podcasts. Meditate. Belly breathe. Be there. Pause. Take a gratitude walk. I mean, there's so much here. Physical, not social distance. You might have to physical distance. Doesn't mean you have to social distance. So. Here we go, Michele. This has been, so we could talk all day. I love this. But we're going to the lightning round. You only get a sentence each or so. We're going to get tight and quick here as we bring it to a close. What's a favorite book or resource right now?
So my go-to is Positive Quotes for Every Day by Patricia Lawrence.
Okay, positive quotes. By the way, everybody, this will all be in the show notes. So all you have to do is look at trustedleadershow.com, www.trustedleadershow.com. Anything great that's referenced here that Michele made amidst the show notes, Chief Freeman will just make sure it's listed there, so you don't have to worry about putting it down too quick. So, all right, number 2, what's something you can't live without?
I would say, Well, I would say I talked about pizza, so pizza's definitely a go-to.
There we go.
And
New
then,
York style.
New York style, for sure. But I would also say connectivity and cultivating relationships and building on long-lasting family and friend relationships.
Indeed. Best advice, or in a quick round here, just a piece of advice or a quote.
Always be true to yourself.
Always be true to yourself. Love it. And I love yours. Lead with love. The foundation of every relationship is trust. I like that one a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, of course. It's one of my top ones for sure.
Yeah, love yours. One thing left to do, one hope you have for the future.
Continue to give. I'm inspired by giving and inspired by learning. So I never want to stop learning from others, and I never want to stop being able to give to others.
You have kept learning. I watched that. Just your love for learning is contagious. Well, one more question. Where can people find out about you? Do you have a LinkedIn or something that? Go ahead.
I do have LinkedIn. It's Michele Freeman with one L, Michele Freeman. I use the only social media platform that I actually use continually is Twitter. So I'm M Freeman Vegas baby. No, just kidding. Just M Freeman Vegas. It's M Freeman Vegas.
M Freeman Vegas. That'll be in the show notes, of course.
Yes.
So, well, it is the Trusted Leader Show. So last question, who's a leader you trust and why?
So this is a hard one because there's many. And I think I'm going to give you one, but I think I might give you two, even though you said I can't. Am I allowed to do that?
Of course.
So the first one I'm going to say is my husband. And obviously I'm in a relationship with him. And if I was not trusting of him, I wouldn't be in the relationship with him. But I saw him at work. I met him at work. I know one of the things I said I would never do, right? Marry the person that you work with. I met him at work and saw that he walked his talk. He was honest. He might not have always said it the way that you wanted to hear it, but you never were blindsided. You always knew what you were going to get. He was very strategic. He supported his people. He was there for his people. He walked the talk that he proved, and he led courageously, and people followed him. And people still to this day say that they follow him, not because he's my husband, because they give me examples of what took place when they're giving me examples of laughter and enjoyment. And they'll be like, yep. And they'll say exactly what he did and give me those examples. So I'm going to say him as one. And then I'm also going to say you. I think you've been really inspirational for me and my development. I'm really grateful that our paths have blended. I'm grateful that you have inspired me personally and professionally. I'm grateful to have been able to learn from you and to be able to frame things simplistically. And you demonstrate exactly what you speak of. You don't just say it, you do it, you live it, you're vulnerable, you express that. And I think it's something that's very important. And you are an inspirational leader and a trusting leader. And it's not just because you teach it, it's because you live it. And so I just wanted to thank you for allowing me to be in the space with you and learn from you and continue to grow and realize that your 8 pillars of trust are invaluable. And I believe in the principles, not because you train them, because they're real. They matter.
Thank you. Wow. How am I going to end this show today? Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Well, I don't have much else to say, but thank you to Chief, and thank you all for listening. It's been the Trusted Leader Show. Until next time, stay trusted.